The increase of population in Asia, current situation and solutions. According to the latest population statistics from the United Nations, the current population of Asia is around 4.5 billion people, accounting for nearly 60% of the world's population. In particular, two Asian countries, China, 1.4 billion people, and India, 1.3 billion people, are the two most populous countries in the world, equivalent to 19% and 18% of the world's population, respectively. Overall, with a large and rapidly aging population, Asia is facing many challenges related to economic growth, labor shortages, and difficulties in social welfare. The population growth rate in the Asian region has consistently remained high, increasing fourfold over the past century. Future population growth depends largely on reproductive capabilities. The global fertility rate is projected to decrease from 2.5 children per woman in the period 2010-2015 to 2.4 children per woman in the period 2025-2030 and further to 2.0 children per woman in the period 2095-2100. However, for countries with high fertility rates, there is uncertainty in predicting fertility. In these countries, women have an average of 5 or more children throughout their lives. Among the 21 countries with high fertility rates, 19 are in Africa and 2 are in Asia. Despite Asia's abundant and diverse biological resources, the rapid population increase leads to resource depletion and the destruction of existing resources. According to projections, Asia's population will continue to grow at a high rate for a long time, putting continued pressure on resources. Based on current estimates, by 2050 the population will increase in most countries in the Asian region, except in Japan and Kazakhstan. Some countries, including Afghanistan, Nepal, and Pakistan, will double their population during this period, while India, Vietnam, Malaysia, and other countries will experience particularly high growth rates. However, many high population growth countries are also low-income countries, which have limited capacity to handle resource and labor pressures. South Asia is the most densely populated region in Asia, with populous countries such as India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. No other region in the world faces population issues as severe as those in these countries. The decline in birth rates in Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and India has only brought modest improvements, as the populations of these countries continue to increase. Population pressure in South Asia began in the decades following the rule of the British Empire. This region needs measures to improve public health, enhance agricultural productivity, establish laws and social order, reduce the frequency and severity of famine, decrease mortality rates, and simultaneously increase life expectancy. The demographic structure of South Asian countries is illustrated by the age and gender pyramid of India, where the youth age group is the largest. Nearly 40% of the population in this region is under 15 years old. For Nepal and Bangladesh, this figure is 42% and 45%, respectively. This age structure puts pressure on providing education, food, hospitals, and housing for adolescents, consuming a significant portion of national budgets. Examining these population pyramids is particularly useful for assessing future trends. As the young population transitions to the working age group, social welfare programs will face even more pressure. Issues such as unemployment, food scarcity, illiteracy, and poor living conditions in these countries will become more severe. The current situation is already serious, but forecasts for the future are even more bleak. In general, the majority of the working age population in Asia works in conditions of scarce resources, outdated technology, and unsafe environments. Additionally, there is inefficient labor utilization. For example, on a typical farm or in a government office, there may be up to 5 or more workers willing to do a job that only 2 people can easily perform. In factories, many activities are manually handled by cheap labor. However, millions of people are still unemployed. Another important aspect related to population issues is food scarcity. Many Asian countries in the post-independence period had to face severe food shortages. India had to import 10-15 million tons of grains annually during the largest food shortage in the 1960s. Most other countries had to import a smaller amount of food. In Indonesia, demographers have warned of an impending population explosion. If population growth continues at a high rate, Indonesia will face serious problems such as housing shortages, water and food shortages, and environmental destruction. In recent years, the country has had to import basic food due to insufficient agricultural land. Another population issue that many Asian countries, especially those in Southeast Asia, are facing is rapid urbanization. In the past decade, urbanization in many areas has not significantly improved the living standards of the people there. There is even concern that Southeast Asia may enter a period where urbanization does not accompany growth. By the forecast for 2030, the urban population in this region will increase by about 100 million people, reaching 373 million. Major cities in Southeast Asia include Phnom Penh, Cambodia, Jakarta, Indonesia, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, Manila, Philippines, Bangkok, Thailand, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and Singapore. Among them, Singapore leads in the rate of urbanization and economic growth in the region, ranking alongside top developed countries such as the United States, Japan, Canada, and Australia. Malaysia follows with an urbanization rate of 75%, equivalent to South Korea. Indonesia and Thailand have urbanization rates of over 50%, while the Philippines has a rate of 45%. The urbanization rate in Vietnam is currently 33.6%, while Cambodia's is 20.7%. These figures for Vietnam and Cambodia are quite similar to the economic development rates of the two countries. While some areas in Southeast Asia have undergone rapid urbanization and development, others have not kept pace with this transition. In Vietnam, it is not difficult to see that rapid urbanization has led to a host of problems such as environmental pollution, both in water and air, overloaded transportation, and a lack of essential public facilities, such as hospitals and schools. Under the pressures of population growth, Asian countries need solutions for demographic issues. Asian countries also need to expand the scope and benefits of social welfare systems, especially public retirement support programs. This is a problem that needs focused attention, especially for countries with inadequate management, contribution, and equitable benefits for the elderly and the poor, such as China and Thailand. Improving labor productivity is a prerequisite, and it is crucial for the governments of these countries to urgently propose implementation plans. Accordingly, Asian countries can boost economic growth through technological innovation and the adoption of policies used by developed economies, such as maximizing the development and support of machinery and robots. Furthermore, plans to increase labor productivity are seen as a good method to accumulate various benefits. Thanks to this policy, countries like Bangladesh, India, etc., can improve the labor productivity of their people, compensate for and continue stable development in the context of declining birth rates.